Hello everyone. How is the festive mood? I hope this is a very unique and never experienced before Navratri, isn't it? Nevertheless, we are going to remember this Navratri for our lifetime as unique festival and unique time. Children, I welcome you all to RKC Online Social Studies class. Today we are going to study revise chapter number 4, the temperature zones of the world. I have divided this chapter into two parts for better understanding. So let's begin with the learning. Students, let us know what would be today's learning objectives. Today's learning objective would be to understand the various factors which influence the climate of a place, to learn about three different, that is three temperature or heat zones of the world, and the temperature zones are the torrid zone, the temperate zone, and the frigid zone. So before understanding different temperature zones, let us first understand what are the various factors which influence the climate of a place. And I would say that before understanding the factors, let us first understand what is the difference between weather and climate. It's very confusing. Many of you may not be knowing the difference between weather and climate. So let us make it clear that what is weather and how it is different from climate. Students, weather can be defined as the condition of the atmosphere over a short period at a given place and at a given time. The atmosphere is affected by the condition of air temperature, air pressure, wind, humidity, and rainfall. Whereas on the other hand, climate consists of average weather conditions that are present over a large area and for a longer period of time. The weather in a place can change in a few hours, means very short period weather condition, means a weather in a place can change in few hours or in few days, as it is affected by wind, sun rays, temperature, humidity, rains at a particular time. Thus, the weather is a temporary state of atmospheric conditions. It may change in few hours or in few days. And the climate of a place remains same for longer period of time, say many years, and may be hot, cold, rainy or dry. It may not remain the same throughout the year and thus gives rise to the seasons. Now in simple words, if I tell you, the climate of a place is the average weather conditions over a long period of time. A place may be said to have a dry climate, a very cold climate, or a hot wet climate, depending on the weather conditions over a very long period of time. Say for example 30 years at least. And the climate of a place also affects the plants and animals, and even to the people, the way people live, have their food, and also they have clothing also style differs upon the climate of a place. They wear clothes accordingly. Now during certain months in a year, the type of weather and sunlight reaching the earth changes. The movement of the earth around the sun causes seasons as we studied in the previous chapter. And India experiences seasons like summer, winter, monsoon, autumn and spring, also that we studied in the previous chapter. The weather conditions prevailing in a large region over a long period of time are collectively known as climate of that particular place or a region. I hope you must have understood the difference between the weather and the climate. I repeat, the climate of a place is the average weather condition over a long period of time. And weather can be defined as the condition of atmosphere over a very short period at a given time or a place. I think children, now you must be clear that weather means a situation of or the condition of the atmosphere for a short period, maybe few hours or just few days, whereas climate is a condition that any place remains the same for at least 30 to 40 years, may it be hot, dry, rainy or any climate, cold. So that situation is the climate. Now we are going to study the factors which affect or which influence the climate. What are the factors which make the climate? Means how they influence the climate of any place. So just now we are going to study about some factors that affect the climate of any place. Factors like latitude of the region, that is latitude or the distance from the equator of any place, distance from sea, altitude, that is the height, wind direction, the pressure, humidity and amount of rainfall affects the climate of a place. Climate varies across the world as some regions experience hot and wet climate while the other regions have dry and cold climate. So now children, let us know some of the factors affecting the climate in detail. The climatic pattern of no two places on the earth are the same. Scientists study several factors in order to understand the climate trend of a place. Now, before knowing or before understanding all the different factors which influence the climate in detail, let us jot down the points first. Children, in your exam, we may ask you that write any one factor influencing or affecting the climate. So out of these 5 points, you can write any one point. If the question demands 2 points, you can write down any 2 points. And if it is a long question asking you that mention all the factors affecting the climate, then you need to write all the 5 points. So students, let us first jot down the points which we are going to study in detail. So these are the factors that affect the climate, out of which number 1 is latitude, meaning latitude of a place from the equator, means the place is situated on which latitude, whether it is close to equator or farther from the equator. Okay, then altitude means at what height the place is located. The distance from the sea, meaning it is far from the sea or closer to the sea. The climate also depends on its location from the distance or at what distance it is from sea. Then comes humidity, and the last one is winds, that is direction of wind. So now one after the other we will see how does it affect. So let us start understanding all the 5 points.
Let us start with latitude. Latitude of a place and tilt of the earth determines the amount of sunlight it receives. Means due to the tilt of the earth and the latitudinal position of the earth, the sun rays received are different at different places. Now let us understand the latitudinal position with an example of two different places. Due to latitudinal location, say Antarctica, it stays frozen throughout the year and the climate there is cold and dry. Whereas the tropical rainforest stays wet and hot, means the tropical rainforest receive the direct rays of sun and so they are hot and humid, and due to lot of heat it receives lot of rain as well. Their climate are different because the amount of sunlight they receive is also different. The places near the equator get more sunlight compared to the places near the Arctic Circle. That is because of the curvature of our planet Earth.
Now let's talk about altitude. Altitude refers to the height of a place above sea level. As we all know, the higher you go, the cooler it becomes. So the places which are located at higher altitudes are cooler than the places located at lower altitudes. Children, the hill stations have a cold climate due to this height above the sea level, which is called an altitude. The temperature decreases with the increase in height. Let me give you one example. The mountain peaks, even if located near the equator or maybe near the desert, with a height above 5,000 meters, remain snow covered throughout the year because of its height. Now, for example, Mount Kilimanjaro of Africa. Africa has a big desert, that is Sahara Desert, which is the largest desert, but because of the mountain and its height, Mount Kilimanjaro remains snow covered. Two places situated on the same latitude may have different temperatures as well. Now we can talk about the desert of Rajasthan and Mount Abu also, which is in Rajasthan, are not very far away from each other, but they differ in temperature because of the altitude. Another example is Darjeeling, which is at 2045 meters above sea level, which is very close to Kolkata, but Darjeeling is cooler than Kolkata because Kolkata is at sea level. So children, here it means that the temperature decreases with the increase in height. Now let us talk about distance from the sea. Places near the sea are neither very hot nor very cold, whereas those far from sea have extreme climates. In summer, land heats up faster and warms the air about it. This warm air rises, making way for cooler air from above the sea to flow in. Whereas in winter, the sea remains warm because it loses heat slowly. When the land gets cold, the warm air from the sea makes it warm. This is how sea breeze keeps places near the sea warm in winter and cool in summer. Now children, places near the sea have moderate climate, and during daytime the sun heats both land and water, but land absorbs more, and because of that it absorbs more than water, and so the warm air about the land rises quickly. The cool air from the sea takes its place, and this is what is called sea breeze. At night, the land cools down more quickly than sea. The air about the sea is warmer and rises up. The cool air from the land takes its place, and that is called the land breeze. Therefore, the weather is neither very hot nor very cold throughout the year. The places far away from sea mostly experience extreme climate, and Delhi is such an example because sea is very far from Delhi. So this is all about the distance from the sea. Humidity means the amount of moisture present in the atmosphere, that is the amount of water vapor present in air or atmosphere. The winds blowing over the sea brings in lots of moisture and make the climate of the coastal areas very humid. High humidity makes human beings uncomfortable. Places near the sea experience high humidity because of because a large amount of evaporation takes place. Places near the sea experiences high humidity, that I told you, and that is why the coastal areas such as Chennai and Mumbai are very humid. Let us talk about winds now. Wind also is an important factor of climate. Depending on the place of origin of wind, it may be either hot or cool. Winds blowing in from the sea carry moisture and are cool, whereas wind blowing in from the desert are dry and hot. Let me explain you children. Winds affect the climate of a place like other factors. Also wind affect the climate of a place. As I told you, winds coming from hot areas increase the temperature, and winds coming from cold regions lower the temperature of a place. The winds may also bring in moisture and are called rain-bearing winds. Winds coming from the Arabian Sea, Indian Ocean and Bay of Bengal, it brings the rain to the entire country of India. Children, Mawsynram in Meghalaya gets the heaviest rainfall in the world. Earlier, it was Cherrapunji of the same state in India with the record for several years. So, it means that winds also play an important role, or it is also a factor which affects the climate of a place. On the basis of prevailing climate climatic conditions, the earth can be divided into 7 major climatic divisions, children. The main type of climate are monsoon climate or tropical climate, equatorial climate, desert climate, continental climate, moderate or maritime climate. Means maritime type of climate is neither very hot nor very cold. That is, places located near sea coast have this type of climate. For example, Mumbai is such a type of place where maritime climate is experienced. Then tundra climate means the tundra region is in extreme polar region, and so the places near the polar region have tundra climate. And the other one is Mediterranean climate, meaning winters are wet due to rains and cool, and summers are very hot and dry. So this type of climate is Mediterranean climate. Now the temperature zones are determined by the amount of sunlight received by a region. Since the earth is shaped like a sphere, different parts of the earth receives different amount of sunlight. Based on the intensity of the heat received, the earth has been divided into 3 temperature or heat zones. That is the torrid zone, the temperate zone, and the frigid zone. So children, in next part of the same chapter, we will learn in detail the 3 temperature or heat zones. So let us have a quick glance about today's learning. We talked about the weather and the climate, the difference between the weather and the climate. Weather is the atmospheric condition of a place for a short period of time, and it changes frequently. Climate prevails over a large area and for long period of over 30 to 40 years. We also talked about some of the factors affecting the climate, out of which we talked about distance from the equator, that is latitude. Then we talked about altitude, distance from the sea, direction of winds, and humidity. Then we talked about all these in detail. Then we talked about many types of climates. India has a monsoon type of climate. Summers remain hot and wet, and winters are cold and dry. We also talked about specifically the Mediterranean region that also receives rain in winters. In desert, days are hot and nights are cold. Places located near the equator have hot and humid climate. Places located away from the sea have an extreme or continental type of climate. Places located near sea coast have moderate climate. And we also talked about the earth that is divided into 3 zones, namely torrid zone, temperate zone, and frigid zone, which we are going to study in detail in the next part of the same chapter. Thank you and stay safe. I hope this video would help you remember the previously learned chapter. See you soon with another learning video, part 2 of the same chapter. As of now, I'm signing off. Till then, keep learning.